We talked a little bit this morning. We didn't get into it because I knew I wanted to cover it a little bit more in detail tonight. The idea that we all make a difference. None of us live to ourselves. None of us die to ourselves. Paul said that in Romans 14:17. We all influence, impact other individuals. And yet, oftentimes we come up with this excuse or an excuse. I can't do it. I don't and can't impact anyone. And the reality is that you can and you do. All of us. We cannot deny that. And we say, well, I can't. And here's some excuses that we give. First excuse that we give is, well, I'm just one person. One person by the name of Sir Nicholas Winton saved 664 children from death, Jewish death, or they were Jewish children, but he saved them from death during the Holocaust because he took it upon himself to deliver these children to safety. James Harrison, one man, lived in Australia, just died in February of this year. James Harrison was called the Golden Arm Man. Reason why? When he was a child, he had difficulty. He was about to lose a lung, and he had a lung surgery, and it took a massive amount of blood. And he was 14 years of age. So he decided, as the doctor told him, the doctor said, if you had had all this blood that had been donated, you would have died. And so he decided at 14, he would give blood. And so at 18, when he could legally start giving blood, he started giving blood. And he gave blood some 1,100 times. Now, you think that's unusual. Here's the part that is interesting. If you've ever heard about the ladies that when they're pregnant, their Rh factor, their blood is different than their babies, and the problem, Harrison had an antibody in his plasma that would allow to work with the baby and save the baby. And it is estimated one man giving blood saved 2.5 million babies. One man, one person. And see, we often say, I'm just one person. I can't make a difference. And the reality of it is one person can. Some of those say, well, I'm old. I can't make a difference because I'm old. And old now, for some people, it depends. I'm 50, you're not old. Your body's old, but your mind's not. There we go. I'm 60, I'll be 63. This is April, so next month, May. I'll be 63. Not old. But talk to my kid. Talk to our son, Ethan. Ethan's 30, I that's about figured out. Born in 1990, 34. So Ethan would probably say, Dad's old. Dad's old. In Joshua, the 14th chapter, in the 15th verse, Caleb came and he said, I want this particular land. The land was being divided out, the children of Israel. I want this land. It was strange that he would want the land. The land is where those of Anakim live. And he said, God will give me the strength, and God will be with me, and I'll be able to deliver this land in the hand of God. And you might say, well, preacher, that proves nothing. Caleb was 85 years old when he asked for it. You see, we often say, oh, I'm too old. I'm too old. I can't do it. What about Caleb? He was 85 years old. Some would say, well, I'm really a nobody. I think Zacchaeus probably felt that way. When the Lord said, come down from the sycamore tree, I'm going to your house today. He probably said, look, Lord, wait a minute. I'm a tax collector. I'm a nobody. There were probably those that were saying that in the crowd. Why is Jesus going to his house? He's a nobody. Yet Jesus said, no, he's somebody. He's important. Do you remember the story of the Syrophoenician woman that came to Jesus, wanted her daughter to be healed, and Jesus rebuked the lady? And the reason Jesus rebuked the lady, I think, was he was testing her faith. But in testing her faith, he told her that he had come but to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. In other words, she was not of Jewish background. He says, I've come to those folks, to these folks, to the Jewish folks. And she said, but the dogs. And he said, we can't give that which is holy to the dogs. And she said, yes, yea, Lord. But the dogs even eat of the crumbs that fall from the table. You see, she was saying, I may be what the world might consider a nobody, but I'm somebody. And the Lord, of course, took care of it. You see, sometimes we have that idea, well, I'm just a nobody. It really doesn't matter. The reality of it is we can't use that as an excuse. We can't say, Lord, I'm a nobody, because the Lord says, look at the Syrophoenician woman, look at Zacchaeus. I took them, I used them. I can use you, just as I used Caleb. And just as I used so many that you find in the Bible. Well, then some would look and some would say, but I'm not the smartest. I'm not the most intelligent. I'm not the most equipped. But I read this Bible and I find out something. God is not giving IQ tests in heaven. God's not doing it. Now I'm thankful for that. I would probably fail miserably, but God's not doing that. And what, as Luke 18:27 says, what seems impossible, man, it's possible to God. We sometimes say, well, I can't make a difference. I'm often reminded of, this has been quite a few years ago. I was called in to do a Tuesday morning, I think it was, ladies' Bible class. The teacher, the lady that taught the class, was gone, and she said, will you go in and teach my class to me? And I said, sure. And I didn't want to ruin the series that she was doing because she had written it, and I didn't want to ruin that. And so I did my own. And I went to Titus 2, and I talked about the younger women and the older women and what we could do, and a ministry that we could actually start in the congregation at the time. And there was about 15, maybe 20 women in the class. And before it was all said and done, before they all walked out, they all had some excuse as far as why they couldn't take one of our young children, our young teenagers, in the congregation and sort of adopt them as sort of an adopted grandchild and just encourage them. Well, I go to the doctor a lot. Well, I'm not always here. Well, I got my own grandchildren. Well, I got to the point where I really wanted to just say, yeah, just forget it. Just let's take Titus 2 out of the book. Let's just take it out of the Bible. But I listened and I tried to be sympathetic to all that were involved. But we often make those excuses. Peter reminds us in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 11, he says, speak the oracles of God, right? You remember that part of the verse? Do you remember what he says further on? He says, let every man minister according to the ministry that God has given to him. I still think and reminded, as Paul talked about different gifts in the book of Romans 12th chapter, here's what he said. He said, use them. Having therefore these gifts, use them. Whatever the gifts may be, whatever you have, different than mine, surely, at point in time, and knowledge and experience and things of that nature, different than mine. Use whatever you have. Don't say I can't do it. Don't say, well, I'm old. Don't say, well, I don't know. Don't say, well, I'm an individual that it really doesn't matter. Or I'm just one person. It doesn't matter. Yes, you can. Do what you can. The lady in Mark chapter 14 that came and anointed the feet of Jesus was blessed, as the old preacher's division sermon goes. She did what she could with what she had where she was. And that's true for all of us. You can make a difference. And you do, but just keep doing it. This evening we're going to sing an invitation song. Flip it up. What number is it? 29. It's up on the board. If you need to respond to the Lord's invitation, once you come, on together we stand and sing.